Katzen TV.
Hey everybody, it's your guest reviewer JB here for Katzen TV. Today we're taking a look at Dr. Möbius and Mr. Gir, interviews with Jean Möbius Giraud. Before we get started on that, I want to ask you to please subscribe to this channel for more cultural content coming out regularly. Please consider underwriting the efforts. There's links to Patreon, Ko-Fi, merch, and whatnot right down there below. And if you like what you see here, please do share out this video. Give it a thumbs up. It helps the algorithm, helps us, you know what I'm saying, let people know about stuff like this. Now, let's dive right into this. All right, little bit of context. Anybody that knows me knows that my absolute favorite illustrator of all times is the legendary Jean Giraud, alias Möbius. Möbius was a force in French comics and really worldwide comics, especially from the 1970s onward. Many people are most familiar in the United States here for the work that he had published in Heavy Metal magazine. It was kind of somewhat adapted, and you remember the Heavy Metal animated movie where one of his most famous characters was kind of adapted for the screen. That's another story for another time. In any case, wonderful stuff. His designs, his art, and his designs has touched numerous things. He was designed a lot of stuff for films in Hollywood, especially in the 1980s. Rewinding a little bit from that, any Star Wars fan has to acknowledge the immense influence that the art and the storytelling of Möbius has had over the years on Star Wars and related media. But the hardcore fans of Möbius in the United States have always been at a little bit of a disadvantage when they want to go even a little bit deeper than just the art itself, because there has not been a lot of interviews published in English with Möbius, or at least collected in a volume where you can put it together and kind of study these things in a scholarly / obsessive sort of way until now. The folks at Dark Horse have put out this wonderful book, interviews by Numa Sadoul, Dr. Möbius, and Mr. Gir. Now, this book, I'm telling you, is indispensable to the hardcore Möbius fan because, like I said, it's been hard to find this stuff in English. Now, I've actually got a book here. Let's take a look at this other book cover that I have here, which is Möbius Entretien avec Numa Sadoul. Pardon me for my very rough French, but it's essentially a lot of the same material that's appearing here in English for the first time was in other volumes like this, which were published in France and Europe over the years. What's great about this, let's just kind of flip through the Dr. Möbius book here. What you can see here is we have all of this various interviews, painstakingly translated into English. And we've also got, some of the bigger characters that appear in the interviews actually have their own kind of little sub-interviews in here. You'll see these kind of one pages, like this one right here, where some of the people mentioned in these interviews are further interviewed, and they kind of give their slant on some of these things that are discussed. The interviews are indispensable, as I said, because Möbius, especially not just in his art, but in his storytelling, in the way that he constructed stories and the types of stories that he told, weren't just, your run-of-the-mill science fiction kind of stories. There's a lot of philosophy kind of interwoven through them, and there's a lot of references to other sorts of literature going through them. Möbius has collaborated with many of the titans of, creativity, let's put it that way, of the 20th century, Ridley Fox, Alejandro Jodorowsky, et cetera, and it's fascinating to get kind of a little bit of the context for what was going on there, but also some of the ideas behind some of the larger kind of storytelling arcs, the Adena cycle, et cetera, and what was going on in Möbius's life, especially if you're familiar with Möbius's work. especially in the late 80s, how it kind of went off in this kind of very different direction. And he wasn't signing his name Möbius, he was signing it just Jean Gir, or, you know, it just like, why was he doing that? And kind of, you get a little bit more context for that in there. What's really, like I said, these interviews are painstakingly translated, because if we look here, let's look at the very back of this. This is an invaluable tool right here, because look in the back, we've got this kind of appendix here at the back where we have page by page. You can see right here some of the names, and it explains on this page he drops this name, and this is the context for who this person is or what he's talking about here. Really, it's really helpful for this, because for me, it's like, as much as I like to think I'm, a kind of savant of French comics from the 70s, I don't know that much, you know what I mean? And reading some of this stuff, it's like, oh, I have no idea who he's talking about here, but I can look in the back and it's like, that's who he's talking about. That's who, Jean-Claude is, or whoever the case may be in this particular case. So yeah, let's take a look at it. It's very text heavy. Obviously, it's not an art book, it's an interview book. So we do have some pieces of art through here. We can see, some of our famous Möbius characters were dealt with throughout the book. I would say, if you're a fan of Möbius, this is the book for you. If you're a casual fan, if you don't even know who the guy is, this is probably not for you. But but this is something for, when you get into Möbius, it's like getting into, it's like getting into Frank Zappa or one of these things, you know what I mean? You have a tendency, I want it all. I want to see it all. I want it all, and I want to know, what all these references are and what he's talking about. So it's a lot like that. Or James Joyce, it's another one of these kind of things. It's like you get into James Joyce and it's just like, oh, there's only so many books, but there's like 10 times as many books about those books. You know what I mean? It's like that kind of thing. So please do check this out. I highly recommend this.
To find out more about Dr. Möbius and Mr. Gir, please visit their website and check out the description below this video. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe to CatSynth TV.
Hey, you're watching CatSynth TV!